Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Today I am finally doing the second Go lecture on the Aji after a kick. And if you don't know what that means, I'll explain it in a little bit. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've honestly been had a little procrastination, but it's finally here. Finally got it all set up. If you had seen my first one on Sabaki and how to deal with opponent Moyos, that one was here are some rules, and each situation is different, and so go figure it out, kind of. Whereas this one, there's not really a lot. It's really more Joseki rote memorization. So this one is going to be set up a little bit different. I'm still going to show you some slides explaining stuff. But then I'm going to have a good portion that's going to be all Joseki sequences, stuff like that. And then I'm going to get into personal examples and pro game examples. So yeah, let's get into it. So what is this kick that I am referring to? So after a normal knight's approach to a 4-4 stone, or 3-4, playing the bump, P3 in the example, so this move right here, that is known as the kick, the corner kick. There are different kind of kicks. I'm referring to the ones against the 4-4 or 3-4 stones after being approached. Yeah, because you can have kicks that are, on the side of the board, but I'm referring to the corner ones. This is a match between Kim Ji-seok, 9P versus Koja, and I'll get into this one in the examples later. So, specifically, what will this lecture cover? Of course, if you answer locally after a kick, if you tenuki or play elsewhere after a kick, which would allow your opponent to get a second move in the area. And then I will briefly go over the 3-4 kick. Just because of the nature of the 3-4 placement, there's going to be a lot less Aji. But I'll still go over just a couple things, maybe some minor differences between the 3-4 kick and the 4-4 kick. Now I wanted to show this as the example because moves A through C are a pretty normal sequence, right? White kicks, black answers, and white jumps. But then Koja played at the marked stone here. So if you haven't seen that move before, it could be like a surprise to you. But it's a normal move nowadays. Normal response to the kick, thanks to AIs, of course. You see it a lot now. So yeah, I'll explain kind of what's going on with this move, things like that. I will also say, just as a little side note, all these sequences and variations are all things I learned them through watching games. With all the variations, they all have my own reasoning as well. So if there's any players that are watching this that are stronger than me or have a better understanding of these moves, please correct me, because I'm willing to learn. I really want to know all these moves, because now with the new AI revolution, the kick is one of the most common moves. So it's very important as you get stronger to know all the variations. And of course, it is impossible for me to go over every move in sequence because, just the nature of Go. There are just so many different things that could happen. But I will go over what I think are the most important and most prominent in this era of Go. Plus, a lot of these variations are more style dependent as opposed to board dependent, or at least your decision making on what you play can be based not only on the board itself, but also your style of play. If you're territorial, if you're Moro style, if you're passive, if you're aggressive, those sort of things. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that's all I have for slides, just kind of setting up the bulk of the lesson. But yeah, so now let's get into the variations. Unlike last time, I actually have all the variations preset, so Hopefully it goes a bit smoother because there's a lot more. So yeah, so this is the Aji after the kick. So white approaches and then black kicks. Now, if we have something like this move, doesn't matter whether black is A or B, was considered not that good maybe in 2015 and below or before, because we were always taught that unless you have the stone already here, like as black, if you don't have a stone already at this point somewhere, doesn't matter where, just somewhere around here, is that this is better for white. Now this is better for white, but things have changed now with the emphasis of Sente, because black does get Sente, and there's still Aji here. So it's considered definitely even, if not a little bit better for black. So that's why nowadays you see the kick, because it emphasizes Sente, but also this was another very common response. But this peeping move is considered pretty annoying for black to answer. Now you might be thinking, well, I'll just connect, like there's no big deal. White loses a ton of Aji on the side. Well, that is true, but if we play, like when white like dives next, if black plays a 3-3 and white extends, this is very similar to this Joseki, which is the first Joseki we've learned basically. But it's almost as if when white went here, black went here, which is, this is considered a very good exchange for white, because if white did this now, black would probably not go here. So by doing it first, white has actually over-concentrated black a lot and has gotten a good exchange. Now, of course, there's many different moves you can play, but all of them, not that they're considered good for white, but they can be pretty complicated. So I won't go over those, just so we can stay on one topic on this video. But just know that because of this peep, that's another reason why people like to kick, because after the kick and jump, you can see this peep is not as good of a move, because black is already, white can't get the slide anymore at Q2. So that's why people kick as well, is to avoid this peep. But yeah, so after the kick, of course, there's two normal extensions. There are other extensions you can do. Again, because they're less common, I will not go over them, because I just want to go over the most common, prominent ones. If you are like a large Knights player or a 2-space high player, I'm sorry, but you can figure out what to do based on the things in this video, what to look out for, basically. So black plays low, and white extends is kind of what, like we started off with, like this is like the most basic variation you can get. If white extends all the way, there is Aji here. Right now it doesn't work. But if black gets a stone around here, let's say black has a stone in this corner, white would need to protect. If white doesn't protect, black can invade, and if white comes on top, black can extend down here. This is the key move. Notice black's threatening to connect on the right and on the left. So if white comes down, black can then connect under. If white protects on this side, black can connect on this side. So it would take out white's base and leave white floating while black seals the corner or the left side, the bottom left. So it's a pretty big move. The reason black doesn't want to do it directly is because you might think, oh, if white comes on top, while black can't do this anymore, black can actually still Hane and seal in the corner in quote-unquote Sente. It's a big move, depending on the board situation. However, white doesn't need to play this now. White can actually drop down like this. And you can see, even if black jumps, white's still connected. And it makes the corner uncomfortable for black. Like if black emphasizes on this side or something, then white can jump in and take out the corner. So Because of this O2 stone, or this O2 move, both players really want this move. So it's all about timing. It's all about timing. Also, if you're going to kick, it's usually probably better to play the one space high. The only time this situation would come up is if black were to back off like this, and white were to ignore. If white ignores, then it's black would kick and then pincer somehow. So this would be more of a common way to get into this variation, is if black already had the stone here at R6, as opposed to playing the kick first and then dropping back. So the difference in terms of the white stone. So of course, when we have, when we look at the difference between A and B here, A of course is more territorial. B is more influence based. But what does that mean in terms of the white stones here? So the difference between A and B is that A, yes, it's more territorial, but it also means these white stones have a lot more flexibility, because this move is on the third line as opposed to the fourth line. When black plays on the fourth line, though, you can see it's closer to these white stones, so that means it's going to be putting more pressure. However, it means the side, as you can see by these different options white has, it means that these stones are going to be on much greater attack, much greater attack. So again, if you are an aggressive player, you might lean towards B more, but if you are a passive territorial player, you might lean towards A more. Also, A is probably a better choice. Like I said, usually how you come to this variation is if you already have the stone here, and then white ignores, and then you can kick, because then you can pincer. However, let's say if white already has a stone maybe along the side here, then it would be reasonable for black to just play the low. Because if black plays high, you can see that because white already has a stone here, black's corner, lower right corner, is much more vulnerable. So that would be the only time you would want to play the low in this kind of variation. Right after the kick, I should say. So yeah. So if black plays low, what if white ignores? So I'm going to keep tally of how many times white ignores, because that is important. So I'll just add a stone in this corner whenever white ignores. So black can pincer. Again, it depends within the lower left, but it also depends on your style. I will say the low right, like 3 spaces away, is the most common you will see in pro games nowadays. So again, depending on the board, the options white has is white can play this kind of large knights move. And you can see it's if black ignores, white's setting up a shoulder hit here, which would really flatten black down. So black would like to add a stone somewhere, but it's not super clear where, like maybe here, maybe attach. So you can see how this move is in a good spot. Also, black doesn't want to try to cut through white because there's too much Aji on this side. If black tries to do this immediately, white will attach. And this, you'll see this attachment is the bane of this R6 move, as opposed to the high. So because white has so many forcing moves on this side, black really cannot cut through, even if white, let's see, does white peep first? Maybe white peeps first. Yeah, there's just, it's not super great for black to try to cut through immediately. And a lot of weaker players will like see a move like this and be like, oh, I gotta cut it. But if you just stay patient, white will need to come back and defend it eventually. So there's no reason to just, if your opponent plays a large knight, a 2-space jump, to jump in immediately, like try to cut it immediately, unless you can see a clear way that it works. So always have patience when you play Go. So yeah, that's probably a common response for white. Of course, white this is also a very common response. Now the point of this move is, let's say black plays again on this side, really take away white space, is that this shoulder hit is super painful for black. Because whether white extends or jumps, white's shape is super light. And if white extends, black needs to play low, because playing the one space jump actually means there's a cut here. And then this attachment. And you can see Atari. And then even if white Atari's from this side and goes here, you can see white can take out the entire corner. With black's not alive here as well, so yeah, or white can play it this way as well. Yeah, so it's very dangerous for black. So if you let white get this extension, you have to play low, because now notice there's not two cuts, there's just one, so black can just protect. But white got a free move, right? We have a white got a free move somewhere, and black wanted to attack this group, but you can see white's basically out, has great shape, and has no problem. So black would like to add a move. There's usually two spots, here or here. And you don't really want to play this one. This one's a no-no. You really want to play the two triangles. Now the difference is, this is more solid. I should mention that the point of this move is also looking at this attachment here. And if black blocks, white can then peep. And black would like to play this empty triangle, but when white cuts, white probably will not live in the corner. But white will be able to seal black in, and it's because black cannot capture this cutting stone in a ladder because of the two-space jump here. So that's the purpose of this two-space jump also, is that it's looking at either this bump or the shoulder hit, or attach and then peep. If black just answers like this, well, white's just pretty happy. Even though black can maybe do something like this, you can see that this exchange here, is a very good exchange for white. So black loses a lot in the corner, and sente for white. So so this move is looking at the ladder breaker. So that's why black plays here, because notice if white tries the same thing, black could actually capture this cutting stone in a ladder. Very easy ladder to read, but a ladder nonetheless. So this move's super solid, and you can notice this is also the move white would want to play, right? So that's another important fact, is that white wants to play here, so I'm going to take that away. Now this move is a little more interesting because it actually does also protect against this, because this is also a ladder. So it does protect against the attachment and 3-3. So you might think, oh, it's faster, so it has to be better. Where it falters is that because this is like a double knights connection here, there is a ton more aji. So that means when white, I showed this. White, basically, any of these moves here, even this one, if any of these triangle moves, if white can get it, will make this move work. So for example, maybe listening back, that maybe didn't make sense, so I'll try to re-explain. So like maybe if white can get this move, this move into this move, now this move works, because now black cannot capture, because white has those moves on the board. So this move sente, or this move threatens this attachment. This move does. This move looks at these two attachments. So black's faster, But because black's shape is weaker, white is in less danger because of it. So, again, if you're an aggressive player, you play this one because it's faster. Yeah, it's less worried about territory and more trying to get ahead of its opponent, because if white ignores, you can cap. And depending on what you have in the upper right, this could be very good. In fact, my last fine art review, I believe it was Fine Art versus Zhu Yuqi. This happened in the game, where black ended up having a huge, and in the case of that game, left side, but in this case, it would be the right side. So, yeah, if you want to do something like this, if this is your plan, this would be pretty good. Whereas if you play a little bit slower but tighter and white ignores, notice you can't really cap because, of course, there's the elephant eye. So you can't really surround white completely. Of course, this would still be good for black, but white's a lot nicer than in this case, because white can only go in one direction. So, yeah, that's basically it for the low approach, is white's looking for this move. I guess one more thing to note is white can also look for this move, which is looking at, I'll just put it on the board. If black, again, tries to pincer, attach, and then cut. If black captures, which is, of course, like the natural thing to want to do, white can play here, which looks like a strange move, but actually the point is to make black very flat in the corner. If black Atari's here, this code is pretty big. If black just connects, even if white extends, whites can reduce black by a lot in the corner later. So, yeah, that'd be pretty good. But yeah, that's it. Basically it for the low. So now, what about the high? And as you can see, there's a ton more options. So A through F. A to B is to just make an extension. C, D, and E are switching directions, and F is just tenuki. So A and B, of course, very similar to the last one. The only difference is you see this move a lot nowadays. And it's kind of looking at if white disconnects, black can kind of steal the base or steal the side from white. While it does have an effect on this corner, because black played high, black's not worried about the cash. Black wants to try to attack white. And I'll explain what happens. Because one response to this, surprisingly, is just to switch to this side. So I'll explain those moves first. So A through B, very similar to if black has a stone at R6 as opposed to Q6, the one space jump. So the real interesting moves are these ones. So of course C, this is a common one that we've been taught. It's basically looking at taking out the corner if black ignores. Black has many options to answer this. One, black can of course ignore. Maybe can pincer. The tightest move is to play this one. This is there's 0 Aji in my corner. It's mine. This is like if you're super territorial or if you're ahead, like you don't want to get attacked at all, this would be the move to play. And of course there's other moves you can play. You can play the knight's move, shoulder hit. You can play this one. You can come out. So lots of options. It again depends really on the situation on the board, but also your style. Are you aggressive? Well, maybe you counter pincer. Are you passive, territorial? Maybe you play one of these moves. So, yeah. So that one's pretty common. So then these are the two kind of, for me in the past maybe year and a half, that were like, wow, what are these moves? So yeah, what is this move doing? It's so again with these ones, these are the ones I'm less sure about, because these are ones that I've seen a lot in specifically fine art games. Fine art, as you know, really loves to leave these two stones if you've seen them, seen any of those games. So what is the point of this move? what it's looking at is the 3-3 spot. That's basically what it's doing. So if black comes on this side, white's of course able to take the 3-3. That seems pretty self-explanatory. I've also seen after this knight's move, white actually goes here, again, in fine art games. And this move's pretty interesting because right now, this move white just played, it has two options. It can come out this way or take the 3-3. So black takes away one option. So now white only has the one option to take the 3-3 spot. However, white can play here first. Let's say like if white has a stone here. Maybe this move's very important for white. So this move is actually set up. So now white actually, again, has two options. And it's not very clear how black should handle this move. Yeah, it's not super clear. If black just comes down, white can come out or take the corner. If black bumps, white can extend and still take the corner. Maybe white wouldn't extend and leave that and just go here directly, see how black answers. So it's a pretty interesting move, honestly, playing this one. But yeah, so usually black will either play this move or this move. One of the two. They're very similar, so I won't get into the minutia of them. But it's basically just saying, okay, white, you that's as far as you can come into my corner. Yeah, and so that's D. Those are really the only responses. This playing on this side, or of course Teinukiing playing here, playing elsewhere. Now E is again very similar. White can just, or black can just take the corner. In this case, this is the only move because white can push and then clamp. So when white plays a little bit closer, this is the only move. And again, it's very similar. Black seals white in. In this case, white really can't get an extra move though. Because this shape is a lot closer, black can just kind of go here. And even though I just said it's not a good move, because white's completely surrounded, white can't live locally. So yeah, the key is you really don't want to attach because it's very, black shape is very not good here. It's not good at all. So yeah, you definitely don't want to attach, probably on either side, because you just leave a ton of weaknesses. And yeah, so don't think about the attach. You could maybe think about this move. Yeah, this move's probably decent as well, because even though white can't live in the corner, and if white does, you can take the outside. So white will usually extend this way first, extend, and then maybe come down like this. This seems a lot better for black, or for white, as opposed to the last one. So yeah, this move's pretty interesting as well. So keep these two moves in mind when I go over what happens if white ignores, or this one. Because, yeah, let's go over this one first. Because it's true, white can do this move and just kind of let black connect. Again, that means if we do this means white is super solid. Black takes second line territory. The corner's still open. Or it could still be threatened at least. And white gets to play elsewhere. So white gets Sente. White can also do this one very similarly. This is also an option. But the other option is just to ignore. With the emphasis on Sente and Gote, white can just play some of those other moves. And I've seen where it's like variations where it's like this, where white just gives up those two stones, but white takes the side. So this is, yeah, always, you know, your opponent's playing a second line move in the opening. Just, who cares, right? Just leave it. Yeah, so you can also just ignore this as well. Now, so I've gone through A, B, C, D, and E. So now the next is Teinuki. Now because black has played tighter, right, as opposed to R6, black has played Q6. That means the Aji is a lot different, as I'm sure you can guess, in terms of running out. So, again, this move's still an option. And again, all these other moves, playing here, playing here. Even sometimes, it's not listed, but S7's even a move sometimes. So, any of these three moves are really options. But after this, if you're going to ignore once, because this moves closer, when you try to two-space jump, black can actually just push and cut directly. Or even just connect like this and do something like this. So the two-space jump isn't an option anymore, but the one-space jump just doesn't feel, because you have two stones here, you want to try to play faster. So really, white can think about ignoring again if white doesn't play on the other side. So then if black pincers again, this is when, so this is, the next move is actually a move that I learned from a Ghoulie game like 5 years ago. So this isn't even an AI move, but this is a move that the AIs have found. Is to play this attachment. As opposed to peeping, which loses a ton of Aji. When white connects here, even if black comes back, you can see white's shape is much better. Whereas if you peep and do this, you can see your move is not as clean. So this move gets white ahead of black. Now you must be thinking, well, of course, there's a defect here, but because white has this move, but white doesn't want to just play that outright because it loses a ton of Aji in the corner. But just know white has this move, which is of course threatening this cut. So keeping that in mind, when white attaches, black cannot push and cut because notice there's this weakness here. And white got two moves elsewhere, and if white can just easily make a base like this, white would be very happy. So black, it's a little uncomfortable for black. If black will usually just extend, and then white can now has shape. So again, white is keeping super light. So remember, so the key is to, if you're going to ignore these pincers, this attachment to the Q6 stone. Notice it's one of the moves to look for if black has the stone on the third line. So just look out for this attachment here. Again, even if black hanes, just double hane. Just double hane. Look for shape. When you're getting attacked, you can't save everything. Like, you do not want to do this. Because black's gain here is much better, and white's getting attacked from both sides. So you want to just stay light. Even if you give up a couple stones, no big deal. You got two moves elsewhere. So whenever you're, like, this attack, you're not counting, when you're counting the attack and how much black's gaining, you don't count the immediate area. You have to count the fact that, oh, I got two moves elsewhere. How much did I get from those two moves? As well as what black's getting here. So that's how you have to count attacks. So yeah, the main thing is to look for this attachment. Of course, you can still play any of these moves also. And also, this knight's move, like playing on the other side. If black plays from this side, then you can shoulder hit or do something like this. Again, staying light. Staying light is the key. So, yeah, that's basically it. That's basically most of the Aji after the kick. Again, I couldn't go through every variation. I only went maybe a few moves deep in all of them. Maybe I'll leave that as a task for you to try to figure out yourselves. But these are what I have seen in pro games, AI games, high amateur games. So, yeah, so now, since the emphasis is all on Sente, keep that in mind with a lot of these variations. But yeah, that's all the variations I have. So we should jump into the pro games and my games. So Again, if you have any questions about these, if I wasn't clear about anything, just let me know in the comments as well. If I got anything wrong, or if I'm missing a point, if I'm missing something, also please let me know. So first game, this was the game that was shown in the beginning slides. So how does white answer? Kick and jump. And because black's already super solid here, I'm guessing that's why he switches direction to play here, because white can jump in, but because black's super solid in this corner, it could turn into white getting attacked as opposed to white attacking black. So that's my, again, they're miles above my level, but that's what I think. And then black plays this knight's move, large knights, which looks strange, and I was actually thinking about this for a while. So of course, why doesn't white attach? So my guess is that it's actually only going after the tail, because black can play this attachment. If white connects, then of course black can connect. So white needs to drop down, but you can see after this move, there's a potential ko here. Right, so if white extends up, not sure which one's better, probably this one. We can see there's this ko here. Actually, this one's probably better. But regardless, there's this ko here, which is pretty huge. So white would like to connect, but then black can just jump, and you can see white's gone after one stone, but black may not do this now, but later black will be able to connect all his stones, basically. So this, and black got a lot of good exchanges. Right, exchanging this move for this move is a very good exchange. And because later white can pincer to go after the whole group, I think this is why white actually just pincers now. So now if black runs out this way, just throwing stones on the board, doesn't really matter. White can come back and pincer later. So yeah, that's why white doesn't go after these stones. So yeah, again, white doesn't want to just jump because of this peep, so white just kicks and comes here. So yeah, again, with all these games that I'm showing, I will leave a link in the description for all the games. I believe there's 8 games we're gonna quickly go through. So yeah, next game, Kujir again. Recently got back to first, the #1 ranked player in the world. So yeah, so we have this. If you've never seen this variation, this is actually a joseki in the upper right. White attaches, so black needs to answer. And then white kicks, hanes, and then pincers. So this, I love this sequence. And I know I said usually you want to play at K17 when you pincer, but because of these exchanges, of course, white goes all the way. So how does black answer? 2-space jump. Again, looking at looking at either of these 2 spots. And then white attaches. So of course, this is not a normal sequence. This is very situational, and it's because white's actually getting surrounded here. So white needs to come out using sabaki. So that explains this one. But yeah, you know, again, not a lot to explain here. I'm just kind of showing you what pros are doing, because all these games are pretty recent, at least since 2018. The last game I'll show is actually from this week. So a lot of this stuff that I'm explaining is definitely up to date, I should say. So yeah, this is my game from the 2019 US Go Congress in Madison, Wisconsin. I actually did a full playlist, or full video playlist of all my Go Congress games. I'll leave that linked in the description as well. You can check out all my games. This was the first round against Fong Chuan Quanchi. And I'm white. I kick and I extend. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Not. Again, it's based on like style and preference, right? So I want to attack these stones, and I want to solidify the bottom. So that's why I played this variation. Black attaches and then extends. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Keja and Shiryi again. Shiryi. Yeah, actually, black pincers first. Black kicking directly, you can see actually makes white's extension pretty good. So black just jumps in immediately, but white extends. So of course, kick. And then I would expect to jump, but black's asking for a lot more. Like, that's not even a little bit more. That's a lot more. But because he's playing further away from these stones, that means those stones have a lot more aji. And this move is looking at a connection. So it's, again, right now these two stones have kind of two options, or one option. They can jump out somehow. But by playing this move, not only does it help the right side group, but it also gives these two stones now two options to connect. So as long as you give your stones options, that's good. So of course black jumps to get rid of one. White attaches and then drops down. And this move's brilliant because it's looking at this attachment that white set up with this move. Again, if white had not played this move, there would be no connection. But also looking at the peep. And again, this attachment is the weakness of playing the knight's move. Attachment comes down. Black doesn't want to let the two groups get disconnected because he can attack this group later. So white peeps, connects, wedges and hanes, and yeah, white jumps out. And white was able to pretty elegantly, honestly, settle for now his two groups. Right, like white was split here, right, on black's side, right? It's a 5-stone to 2-stone advantage. So yeah, I really like that example. This is another one of my games. It doesn't say it, but this was my 5th round game of last year's Go Congress in Williamsburg. My opponent is Jiwan Zhang, and I bet you can guess now where I go, right? Kick, stand up, and then I pincer. He plays at the weak spot, right? I jump, which, going back, I don't think that's that good of a move because it leaves the two weaknesses, which and then he plays this knight's move, which large knights, which I really like. Then I extend. So again, pretty common move, or pretty natural sequence here. Another example. Oops. A little later in the game, actually, when white approaches. And then black pincers. Again, usually you want to play on the 3rd line, but black felt it was too low, so he played high. And because he has a stone here, this wall here, and already stones here, black can actually get a pretty good attack. And white just attaches, which isn't one of the options I said, and just cuts. Ataris. And then just lives. Now the reason why white just wants to live locally is because of the situation. If white tries to come out this way, because black already has the stone at J16, white doesn't want to. White wants to leave the option later of coming in because it would be a pretty good gain. Notice in the game when white just Ataris and comes back, you can see that this area is still wide open. So that's why white plays that way. Kai Jing and Yi Ling Tao. This was another one of the examples in the slides, and this one's very easy to understand. White kicks and then splits. Black plays this large knight's move that I showed. Again, looking at the shoulder hit. So white, of course, backs off. Or, yeah, defends, backs off. So now black plays at the weakness. And then white makes a base. Again, white wanted to settle on black's side, right? White did that. But now black gets to attach. Hane, cut. Atari, connect, and then extend. Again, very, very simple. Very simple. And then this was the game that was played earlier this week between number 1 and number 2 in the world, Keja and Park Jung-won. And this game is very peculiar if you haven't seen this game, because white kicks, Keja kicks, and then Park kicks. So this is we have a mirrored image. White extends up, and then black does something which I think is really neat, but is also very specific in this case. Is he hanes, ataris, and then extends. So usually you want to stand up because there's still aji in the corner. But once you do these hanes and ataris, you can see white's very solid here. But if black were to just stand up, white would get the first move on the upper side, which means white's getting a base and black's still floating. So black made sure that he would get the important move in the middle. White 2-space jumps, black plays, and then black plays to defend the ladder here, the attachment. So yeah, pretty, with these examples, again, you can look at the boards, you can kind of get what they're looking at. So yeah, it's pretty neat. I got a lot of these variations aren't super complicated. You just need to know them. Like if you don't know them, they can seem a little crazy, but as long as you study what was in this video, they will start making sense. Yeah, and really quickly, I forgot to do this, so I apologize for all you 3-4 lovers. Is the 3-4 one. Again, very, very similar. If black plays low, there's not a lot of aji. If white ignores, white looks for this attachment. Same exact concept as the one if black plays the 1-space jump from the 4-4 stone. If black plays high, or in this case, black can play even higher, putting more pressure on. But this means later white can play this point here, which is considered the weakness of this shape, because if black ignores, white can attach and cut and then extend down or extend this way. So black needs to defend somehow. If black is worried about this, of course. Go in there somehow. Yeah, so if white ignores, white can go swap direction. So again, very similar. Because the corner is smaller, of course, there's less aji in the corner. So really it's more emphasis on the outside, but it's very same philosophies for the 3-4 kick. Very similar. Usually though, if you see them in pro games, they're a lot more passive. You don't see a lot of just because of the nature of the 3-4 stone, you don't see as much craziness, I guess. But yeah, that's it for this lecture. I hope you learned something, right? I hope I was able to shed some light on if you've looked at recent pro games or even at AI games, about some of these variations, why they're playing what they are. I hope I can explain some things, or if that you have some new ideas to try in your games. Yeah, just try it, right? That's how I learned. That's how I got better. Is I just tried the things that I observed and what I learned, and tried to make my own understanding of them. But yeah, in the description I'll have links to all the games that I showed. I'll also have a link to my US Go Congress 2019 video playlist. If you have any questions about anything I showed, or if you wanted to correct me about something that I showed that wasn't quite right, or something was unclear, whatever, comment, please let me know. Also, let me know what you want me to do for my next lecture video, because I have some ideas, but I want to make sure that they're in line with what people actually want to see. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.